All right, the YouTube is streaming now. Have a good meeting.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Brian Moffitt, and I would like to welcome you to the meeting of the Asheville Downtown Commission for January 14th, 2022. Happy New Year. The Asheville Downtown Commission was created by the City Council for the sustainability and continued development of downtown, a vital urban center of Western North Carolina's economic, cultural, and visitor activity. The Downtown Commission provides City Council with recommendations on downtown policies and initiatives. In addition, Downtown Commissioners currently fill 4 out of 9 seats of the city's Design Review Committee, which reviews development projects within the Central Business District, the River Arts District, and hotel projects outside of those areas. And the Downtown Commission also has the opportunity to provide input on projects outside of the scope of design review. All committee members and staff are participating virtually. We appreciate your patience as we are continuing to work through our committee meetings a bit differently. We are streaming live on our virtual engagement hub, which is accessible through the virtual engagement hub link on the front page of the city website, also linked on the Downtown Commission's page. We also have an option for the public to listen live by phone. For those of you that are out there with us today, welcome. At this time, I will go through and introduce our committee members who are participating virtually. Committee members, you know how to do this. Please make sure to mute your microphone if you are not speaking. When you have a question and would like to speak, unmute your microphone. And remember to remute your device after you are done speaking. And committee members, as I call your name, please say a quick hello. Andrew Fletcher.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning. Our new commissioner, Tal Frankfurt, is unable to join us today. Kimberly Johnson.
Kimberly
Hunter.
I
I
can't
Stephen
say that
Lee.
Kimberly Johnson is here, but Kimberly Hunter, it says good morning.
I was reading too fast. My apologies. Stephen Lee Johnson.
Hey, good morning.
I am here. Robin Raines.
Good morning.
I'm going to slow down a little bit. Megan Rogers.
Good morning.
Guillermo Rodriguez.
Good morning.
Good morning. Our new member, Ricardo Sejo. Thank you very much.
Good morning.
Good morning. Ruth Summers. I see you saying good morning. Good morning, Miss Ruth.
Good morning.
There we are. In our City Council liaison, Sage Turner.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning. Thank you. So we will begin our committee agenda items at this time. To help our audience follow along, I will state each section of the agenda aloud. I will do a vocal roll call for each vote. Our committee members know to raise their hand to speak, and I'll do my very best to call upon them. So at this time, we will walk through our draft action minutes, approval of minutes. We have draft action minutes from December 10th, 2021. And then we have notes regarding a joint meeting that we had with Multimodal Transportation on December 16th, 2021. Are there any comments or additions or revisions to make to the draft action minutes? Please remember that these are just the draft action minutes. The full minutes are considered the video recording of the meeting. Or a motion to approve.
I have a motion to approve. I move.
Yeah, Guillaume makes a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second, Megan.
Thank you. So I will walk through the roll. Andrew?
Aye.
Thank you. Kimberly Hunter.
Aye.
Stephen Lee.
Aye.
I am aye. Robin?
Aye.
Megan?
Aye.
Gio?
Aye.
Ricardo?
Aye.
Very good.
I did look at them.
Yes, good. Ruth?
Aye.
And Sage?
Aye.
That motion passes. So our agenda today, we will briefly see if we've had any public comment. We do have some new business in presentations. We have a project review development impact discussion for the Star Building. a pergola for the Aris building. We have updates for development at 123 Haywood Street at 363 Hilliard. We have some discussion on our annual report and our council recommendations. We need to talk a little bit about our Public Space Management Committee reestablishment. I'd like to take a vote on that. And then we'll have updates and reports concerning our Design Review Committee and our Asheville Downtown Association and the Downtown Update Report. So do we have any public comment or live call-in at this time?
We had no public comment in advance, and I'll just check the queue real quick. And no live callers in the queue.
Okay, very good, thank you. So at this time, we will move to our project review development impact discussion. And the first item is the Star Building.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Will Conquest. I'm a planner with Planning Urban Design, and I'm working on facilitating the review of the historic Star Building rehabilitation. Going to share my screen with you all. All right, can you all see this page here with the historic photo?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So, so this project is a historic rehabilitation of the Star Building located downtown. Here is a historic photo of it with some information about the project. It's located at 28 Lexington and 72 Broadway, so it spans the entire block and has frontages on both of those streets. The proposed project will consist of 4,500 square feet of retail space at the ground floor and 35 guest rooms for hotel use. The project went through technical review committee on January 10th, and that was approved with conditions, and it's scheduled for design review committee later in February, I believe February 21st or so, the third Thursday in February. So here are just some ground floor plans of the proposed project. You can see the retail being proposed on Lexington Avenue. On Broadway, because of the slope of between the blocks, this is kind of below grade. So this is kind of more of a sub-level on Broadway with business and support space. The second floor, which is the first floor on Broadway, has the retail with the hotel use. Lexington, more hotel on the third floor, as well as the fourth floor. Here's a good aerial view showing the building here. Broadway in the foreground and Lexington in the background, with the alley that you can see that kind of comes in on the other side of the block here. So this project consists of a historic rehabilitation. It's in the National Register Historic District, and the project will be rehabilitated using the Secretary of the Interior's standards for rehabilitation. So the Lexington Street or Avenue facade will be rehabilitated. It's not changing a lot from the historic condition. Most of it's kind of repair of elements and replacement as needed. Kind of, I guess, rehabilitating or refurbishing the marble glass here on the storefront, but kind of keeping all the openings and windows in place as they are today. The Broadway street elevations changing a lot from the current condition in order to kind of revert back to its more original condition. It's almost hard to tell that these are the same buildings, but this is the existing facade of Broadway with these kind of four, uh, almost like New Orleans style balconies and doors, and it's going to be refurbished back to the original openings of four windows over four windows on the second and third floors. This kind of ephes material will be removed from the existing facade. I believe there's the old brick beneath it, and then that will be rehabilitated as well as the storefront here. The applicants also provided some more renderings. This is the facade as seen from College Street. Isn't changing a whole lot from what's there today. And then the view from the alley elevation, which likewise is pretty much remaining in place as well. And it also provided some cross sections of the floor plans, application materials, as you can see here. And yeah, that's pretty much it. This is a level 2 review. Like I said, it'll be going to design review in February. So if you have any questions for me, I don't know if the applicants are here with us today to present or answer any questions. I'm happy to answer any questions that folks might have.
I'll ask well, maybe I should save this for the design review. Is there a reason they're doing stucco on the refurbished side versus restoring the brick, or is that they're not brick there? This is on the Broadway Street side. At the bottom of the elevation, they're doing stucco. I'm just curious why.
Yeah, this element here, I'm not sure.
No. Down at the bottom, Will, at the base, that the yellow
okay.
is a stucco
Okay.
product, which is allowed. We don't allow ephes. We do allow stucco, but I'm a little curious if you knew.
I do
Okay.
not know. Yeah, I could make a guess, but yeah, that's a good question.
Will, does this project require community benefits? Is it the hotel size in that realm where it requires that?
Yeah, so it will require community benefits. They have not identified any yet, but they're aware of that and they're working through how to meet those requirements.
Okay. Okay. Are there any other questions for Will? Okay. I think I saw Stephen Lees Johnson hand first, and then Andrew.
Thank you. I had just more of a question on the site plan. There seems to be a discrepancy about what to do with the existing street trees. There's one on Broadway, and there are two on Lexington. And I just had a couple of comments about what I'm seeing on that. So, Will, are you aware of what their plan is?
Yeah, we talked a little bit about this in technical review. I believe, can't recall which street frontage it is now off the top of my head, but one of the trees needs to be removed because it's a mature tree, but I guess the way it was planted and the way it was allowed to grow, the roots have infiltrated into the sidewalk, so that was agreed to be replaced. So if they have to get rid of the street tree, they are replacing them. So I believe what's there today will exist in the future in some form.
I have a recommendation. I'm looking at sheet L101, which is the landscape compliance plan.
Okay.
It states on that sheet that the existing tree on Broadway and the existing trees on Lexington are to remain. I think that's where the discrepancy is. But at any rate, my suggestion is that the tree on Broadway Street needs to be removed. It's diseased. It looks like it's got some southways bark issues going on, and I just think it needs to be looked at very carefully. I would suggest that that tree come out and a new, healthy, vibrant, nursery-grown, permanent street tree go in that place with a silver-cell system in there. I invite anybody to go on Google Street View and look at that, or walk by it and take a look at it. And then on Lexington Avenue, it's 2 Bradford pears, I think, that are in that spot. Those both need to come out, and they need to be replaced. But there is a big power line on the top of that. So just those 2 points I wanted to bring out for the development team to take a look at. Thank you.
Andrew, I think you're up.
Yeah, my question is about ingress and egress to Tingle Alley during the project. I know there are people that live back there. That's their only way in and out. Is there going to be any consideration of the immediate neighbors and restricting construction use to allow other uses for those folks who would otherwise be trapped there? I'm a little concerned about that.
That did not come up during the technical review. I don't believe it was noted what the access would be like. I don't believe they're proposing to restrict or close the alley during construction or anything like that. We can certainly try to understand what their plans are, so they're not impacting other uses or blocking access to any kind of unnecessary debris.
Will, you can just note that they have to provide a construction staging and site access plan, especially for downtown. And you can just note that in your report that, we raised that issue, and that we want to make sure that Tingle Alley ingress, egress, regress is maintained for all occupants and residences during the scope of the project.
Because they're the apartments and things there. That's second floor to Lexington, ground floor to Tingle. So if they're blocked in on the Tingle side, they don't have a way out. And that's the type of thing that we've seen developers sort of not really consider very well in the past. And I want to make sure the city's on the side of the people who are living in that area and guaranteeing that. The other thing is the applicant made any comment about where they intend their guests to park?
They haven't. That was brought up because it will require 17 parking spaces for the hotel use. We've identified that, and they will be providing that information to us at some point. I believe the zoning was changed recently that future hotel uses will have to provide their parking on site, but this project was submitted prior to that change, so I believe they're allowed to provide the parking on site.
Yeah, clearly the timing of this project was to take advantage of that, because it was after Downtown Commission had recommended to council that we require on-site parking for lodging use, but shortly before council was actually able to get that through. So I think that seems like the prime reason why this is getting under the wire, is to avoid a council vote that would have to have given this project an exception. So I think we did the right thing in November, requiring lodging to have on-site parking. I'm sorry to see this project get under the wire, because I think it defeats the intention of the city. So that's hard to see another private developer getting one up on us.
I see Shannon has her hand up, and then Gio, I think.
I just wanted to remind the commission that the scale of this project's a level 2, so it doesn't require council review. It has this option to kind of bypass council for a hotel, but it is required a neighborhood meeting. I went to check the notes when Commissioner Fletcher asked the question about access to the property, wondering if perhaps that was discussed in the neighborhood meeting. I didn't see it specifically mentioned, but they did highlight that project schedule and construction timing and all of that was discussed. So hopefully some of that information was shared. And these neighborhood meetings, just to remind the commission, they don't just go to property owners. The notices don't go just to property owners. It goes to all the addresses within 200 feet. So hopefully any residents in the area would have been informed of this pending project. And then so there was something else I want to, can't remember what else I was going to mention. Apologize. It must not have been too important.
Could you speak to that parking one? So this is the
Oh,
old
the
rule,
parking. Yeah,
so
that is true. So yeah, so Will is correct. We did, and actually it was based on the recommendation came from this commission that we should require, hotels being the only use in our downtown, that we require off-street parking, but that off-street parking should be on site. That was adopted by council. That is a standard now. However, this application did precede that. They will be required, however, to produce some sort of lease agreement or something before any construction permitting will be released. They'll have to show that they've secured the appropriate number of off-street parking spaces. So we don't have that information yet, as far as I know, but it will have to be supplied.
isn't there a distance? It must be within some amount of feet.
500.
I thought it was
500 feet, yeah, for shared parking.
Thank you.
And that's along the pedestrian path of travel, as I recall. It's not a radius.
That's
But
correct.
for clarity, the same project, if it were to be submitted after December 14th, would be required to have on-site parking. And
Correct.
if they wanted to have another arrangement, then they'd have to ask council to have that arrangement accepted, correct?
That's correct.
Cool, thank you.
And that standard has already, I think, thrown wrench in plans of several other pending applications. Just yesterday, I was asked about that and explained, and that kind of put the end to that question. So
Gio, go ahead.
I just wanted to make sure that I understood. The hotel access is from Broadway? Will?
I believe maybe both sides. There's definitely
I was just,
access.
I'm concerned about its impact, the hotel impact on Lexington. I just want to make a personal comment. I'm very dismayed that this is being stuck in the middle of one of the most beautiful buildings, I think, in downtown.
Kimmy?
Hey, I have a question of just sheer, like, I don't even know. So please bear with me. This is kind of based on a little ignorance on my part of the matter. But when there's required parking within 500 feet, is there a special tax? And I know this may not be the place for it, but just if someone could email me or something. The reason why I'm thinking of that is because of the different wear and tear on the surrounding areas if it's not on site, and the upkeep of the roads and sidewalks, especially for ADA requirements, totally has a different toll on how things get managed. So, I know it doesn't seem like it relates, but in my little mind, it does. So I was just wondering if somebody staffs that had maybe an answer or solution or a link to my question, and I can look at that offline. Thanks for obliging me.
Anybody got any staff have an answer to that? So I'll just chime in as a designer who's had to do in the village, had to do shared parking agreements, and I don't recall any particular tax other than no, I don't recall any particular tax on or additional fees that we had to pay in order to utilize remote parking, I think is what they call it. Shannon, you have your hand up. You have a better answer, I'm sure.
yeah, there is no additional tax. Of course, the commission is aware that this is a designated improvement district, and we could, at some point in the future, adopt a business improvement tax for the downtown and use that money for things like sidewalk improvements. But as it is now, there isn't anything like that.
Okay, well, thank you. And I think that's what I was kind of getting at, because we had talked about in the past a business improvement tax quite a while back, and I just didn't know if this kind of fit the bill in terms of, offsite parking and parking lease agreements, and this is where that would fit. So thank you again for kind of obliging me.
Go ahead, Sage.
Just since we're on topic, this term of the business improvement district continues to come up more and more often. In your experience with that, if something like that existed, can it be prescribed that something like a lodging use would pay a higher rate than other businesses? Does anybody know? Is it just equilateral across all business types?
I think in North Carolina, properties are need to be assessed consistently based on assessed value.
Yeah.
So it'd be interesting to see which properties have higher assessed values, maybe the larger ones, maybe,
And-
commercial uses can play into that. But I don't think North Carolina gives you the flexibility to be specific.
Use,
Yeah, I think Dana, well, I'm quite sure Dana is correct, but I will say, having looked at the assessed value of some of our hotel properties, it's quite high. So over some of the other commercial properties. So I think that, they would probably pay a higher rate just based on their assessed value.
All right. I think it's Gio and then Andrew.
I just wanted to chime in because I had lived in the French Quarter, and I bring this up a lot because it's one of the reasons why I love downtown. In the Central Business District and the French Quarter in general, businesses had to, there was a sort of an impact fee, or I'm not sure if it was directly a tax, but because of the need to increase municipal services such as regular, 2 or 3 times a day trash pickup and traffic control, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. You can imagine. And these businesses had to pick up that extra slack because you really did have a need for focusing on keeping public spaces clean and safe, increased policing, all of those things. So and I guess I kind of want to mention this to Sage, since you're our council liaison, that I think that I would encourage that discussion in the very near future to have the businesses that impact our public spaces downtown pay for additional services.
Go ahead, Andrew.
Yeah, I'm gonna, the other way to do that with taxation is just to do it the other way and rebate uses that we like. For instance, we know that residential uses really contribute to a downtown having just eyes in front and creating a presence of community and people who can walk to work and things like that, who aren't creating infrastructure wear and tear in the same way. You can always rebate them and even potentially just give them a zero rate of that district. So there's some ways to work around the lousy rules that we get from the state.
Sage.
Whoops, sorry. Oh yeah, Andrew, chiming in on that. It makes me think too, every time we have a tax credit project in downtown, they're usually done by a nonprofit developer, or even if you looked at the current proposed Haywood Street congregation, their development arm is a nonprofit. So they would be, in a sense, already not rebated, they're just exempt. But some of these residential projects already have some incentives built in. It's a curious thought. It's a good point.
I think that covers pretty much all of our substantive comments on this project at this time, correct? Stephen Lee, you have one more thing? Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. I'm just curious what the actual pattern is for getting in and out of the building. If you're a guest, from what I can tell on the floor plans, it looks like you enter the building, a hotel guest would enter the building through the alley. And is that alley part of what's being proposed to be kind of a maybe like car stacking for guest arrival at 3 o'clock in the afternoon on Thursday or Friday? I think it'd be good for us to kind of understand how these public spaces are going to be utilized out there. I don't know if there's a representative, if the developer's here. Oh, I see the architect is here. Hey, Robin.
All right. Go ahead,
I can
Robin.
tell you. It says exit onto the alley right there at the lower part, and that's where the main entrance would be, and access to the elevators and the stair in the middle of the building, and the parking would be there also. So that you go in from there and then decide whether you want to go upstairs, downstairs, um, to the left, to the right.
Okay. Very good. So staff help me, we don't vote on these anymore, correct? There's no requirement for a vote. We just have a discussion. You note it in the report. We move on. Is that correct?
That's correct, but I'd say if you have any particular areas of interest
Recommendations.
or concern, feel free to be specific about those.
Okay. Well, Will, I'm going to summarize what my understanding is for now. Stephen Lee noted specific items regarding the trees. I think you need to note that and pass that along. I think there has been a good deal of discussion about how the building is accessed, regarding specifically keeping access during construction of Tingle Alley, and then how the flow of traffic to and from the building, specifically from hotel guests, and where the parking is located for hotel guests, is an issue for the Downtown Commission, that needs to be clearly noted and described, and those impacts de-emphasized as much as practicable. And then there were just some general notes regarding, we're downtown is the Downtown Commission. Well, we like this building. I very much appreciate the restoration of the design. I think there's a general sense that we wish it was something other than a hotel, but it is what it is, and we'll move from there. I think that's the gist of what we discussed. And then for staff, what I've noted is that there's a sense that the commission would like to communicate to council that, and Kimmy, that was brilliant, that we need to capture some way when we have remote parking, that does introduce, they're using public resources to meet their parking requirement. And, is there any way that we're utilizing to capture that? And Andrew's suggestion of, rebating uses that contribute less to the impact is a good recommendation, something council could consider as they move forward with that. So with that, I think we can move on, unless anyone objects, to the next item. And this is a addition of a pergola onto the Aris building. I'm not sure who's presenting that. Is that you again, Will?
It's me.
Nope, Shannon. All right.
So for our new commissioners, I'm Shannon Tuck. I work with Will in the Planning and Urban Design Department. So you'll be seeing us semi-regularly at these meetings doing these development updates. This next item is a new request from the Aris, the McKibben Hotel Group that owns the Aris Hotel on Patton. Actually, it's got frontage on multiple streets. And they would like to add some outdoor dining one-story pergolas in front of their building. So you can see from the site plan here, the shaded blue areas are the location of these two pergolas. They would be symmetrical on either side of the main entrance of the building. They're about 14 by 40 feet. So about 560 square feet each. So a little over 1,000 square feet. And again, it's for the purpose of providing sheltered space for outdoor dining. The space currently is outdoor dining. They have some seating out there. They're, outside of their restaurant bar area that is on the first floor, just inside the main entrance. So this would just be sheltered space. It is on private property. The RS is a little bit unique in our downtown in that the face of the building doesn't come out all the way to the public right of way. And the pergolas pretty much define where their property line is. And then beyond that is public right of way for which they have an agreement with the city to use some of that for some additional outdoor space. So and I should say that the material that they are proposing to use would be, from what I understand, it's like a rigid plastic, and it's going to have some mechanical capability, so it can be louvered to ventilate, and there's going to also be some screens, some mechanical screening in there. So when the sun is, in the winter, when the sun is lower in the horizon and it's shining in, they can kind of screen. So here you can see the sort of the perspective views of that one-story or those one-story pergolas on the front of the building. It's a little tricky. The UDO in the design requirements is pretty generous. So we limit one stories, whether it's an addition or new construction. You can't really have a one-story building in the downtown. You can do very limited one-story additions, less than 1,000 square feet, no more than 20% of your gross floor area, et cetera. But that applies to the majority of additions. But there is this pretty generous exception for outdoor dining areas. It also says that that's the only time you can put it in front of a building. So here we have probably one of the most prominent buildings in our downtown with these pergolas that are normally we would never allow one-story additions and certainly not on the front of a building. But here we have this exception for outdoor dining. So the UDO is pretty generous in that regard. The design guidelines aren't super helpful. There is some guidelines under rehabilitation, maintenance, and additions about additions. But again, it's really referring to these other kind of additions that we see. And in those cases, it asks to be to the side or the rear or certainly set back from the face of the principal facade. But it doesn't really speak to outdoor dining. So there's a little bit of a void there. So we don't have the best guidance from the guidelines. That same section talks about not covering up the facade, but yeah, I think they're talking mostly about renovations and not these kinds of additions. So that's kind of the request. It does meet the definition of a major work, so it will be required review by the design review committee. It is scheduled for next week's meeting before the design review committee. And after that step, it will require an amendment to the original conditional zoning. So there is some opportunity to kind of look at how this might meet certain city goals or how consistent it is with the original plan. So there can be opportunity for a little bit more of an in-depth analysis as to how this affects our streetscape or the building itself. But that hasn't really been performed just yet. So we're just very interested in the commission's feedback. That kind of concludes my introduction, unless there's some specific questions I can help answer.
Go ahead, Andrew.
I thought these people were proud of this building. I don't know why they need to do this. They have a tremendous amount of square footage inside for dining. As a pandemic adaptation, this might have been, I think, okay on a temporary basis, but I think it's ugly as sin. And I didn't realize we had such a loophole for first floor construction, for grounds for one-story construction. And also, I kind of don't exactly trust the applicant terribly much, because we've had some interesting public space issues out of this applicant in the past. I know they're getting some of the structure might go to the property line. They've fenced off public area in front of that already, and that I remember that was that didn't seem to be the deal we were getting when this initially went through. Um, and just like a couple, just there's been a couple things about this applicant and their relationship with the city and public space. And then they want to make then they want to add this ugly thing. I think this is um, I think that I don't know who can stop this, not us.
That was wonderful. Anyone else?
This is Sage. I'll just add, I'm also not a fan. I mean, I understand what the developer is trying to do here, and the pandemic has created different needs for outdoor dining and safety. But when the art museum across the street was envisioning their new site, it was about being open, almost like a plaza. And we look across this entire intersection, and it is meant to feel like the center of town, plaza-ish. This doesn't emote that for me. It feels separated. I don't want to say that it is ugly, but aesthetically, I don't think it goes well with the building itself. I'm not a fan. I like the openness.
Go ahead, Kimmy.
Thanks. I go back to my lighting thing, right? So currently, this building has pretty ample lighting at night. It's very vibrant. Um, no risk of people of all different skin tones being seen or mistaken for anything. Do we know from staff or anything how the pergolas will actually directly impact the ability for visibility and just safety again? Do we know any of that, or is this just about, adding pergolas? And then does it have any impact on how do pergolas have change impact on ADA needs? I don't know. I ask a lot of questions that are probably wrong, but um, I don't know. The visibility issue and the pergola ADA requirements. What is that about? Thanks.
So if I could just respond to Ms. Hunter. So interestingly, we have a separate issue related to this project, related to their lighting. Not so much the lighting at the ground plane, but they have these very bright up floodlights that kind of wash up the building. And these have been identified as non-compliant from the very beginning of the project. And we've been waiting for the applicant to find another solution. It appears as though, as part of their CZ, because this is going to require an amendment to their CZ, they will also be seeking an exception to that floodlighting. So there could be an opportunity to look at lighting overall. So I will ask them that question, because I think this is a good opportunity to look at that. So we might be able to have some more information for you later.
Okay, thank you.
Stephen Lee, go ahead. Oh, I'll quickly address ADA. Kimmy, they have to meet ADA for this just as much as they do anything else. And so it looks like they would have access and entrance. As you enter the main door, you could go right or left to go into the pergola, and you could come in from the inside. So I think they've probably got that covered, but they would have to meet, this would have to be fully accessible in order to provide, when you provide a different kind of space, you have to provide reasonable accommodation for each type of space you provide. So, yeah, go ahead, Andrew.
Just to jump in, I believe that their ADA accessibility would be from the back side of the building, not the front, I think. So I bet that it's not, that they've got compliance from the other side of the building, and so the front isn't even going to come into it. That's my hunch.
That's kind of what I was digging at, because on this side, you don't really have true ADA compliance the way it is, correct? That's the only reason I'm bringing it up, is because I don't recall that being the case.
I'm glad you pulled that up, Shannon, because when I was hit them, I wanted to look across the street too. We'll We'll just note that that they have to meet ADA, that's going to be a building safety requirement, and as well as a landscaping requirement, and that's something that we can look at with that Public Works will be looking at, as well as building safety.
It does. I thought I remembered this, and that's why I wanted to pull this up and look at it. Is that, you know, there is this sort of at grade threshold, but of course it's been fenced off as a result of this. So it does look like the only access are these stairs, which would not be accessible. So
No, and
Correct.
that's the only reason why I brought it up, because right now, it seems like it's not in compliance. So again, I'm not the compliance police. Everybody here knows more than me, but the two things that matter to me a lot are lighting and ADA. So this actually already seems like it's in the wrong. Just bringing it up.
Thank you. Stephen Lee, go ahead.
Three quick things. One is, in the image that we're looking at now, there is a at-grade accessible entry. It's a gate. There's two planters directly in the center of the screen.
right
That's
there.
an operable, accessible entry. I would just like to make, I'm assuming there's not a representative from the development team on here. I'd just like to make a recommendation when this comes before design review. Um, it would be really good if we could have a closer look at materials. It looks like there's some design detailing going in this thing that would be interesting, but it's hard to see on the images that have been provided. In addition to like just the view that Shannon has brought up here, it would be great if we could just see it sketched in a real life view for that upcoming meeting. The third thing I wanted to mention again was something that Shannon mentioned about lighting. I just have lost confidence in the developers' concerns about how the lighting of this building impacts downtown. Really evidenced by how they approached the lighting of the public art feature at the intersection of Lexington and Patton. There was no forethought at all, and I could go into great detail about that, about how they've tried to rectify that, a kind of a hawk attitude towards it. But I just would love to see that rectified as a part of this. I guess it's conditional use, not conditional use, but as part of their final approval process on this request. Thank you.
Go ahead, Andrew.
Yeah, I guess when you guys could take this to design review, I mean, ask them why they're putting a little Tykes hood ornament on a Ferrari. This plastic pergola just doesn't seem to match at all. The other question I have is, what is the process on modifying that CZ? Like, why this is something I don't think has come up for me before. Usually try to be pretty solid on my zoning and processes, but this one I'm not sure about. So how does that amended CZ go?
It pretty much follows the same process as a CZ. Occasionally, depending on what the amendment is, we can skip technical review. I think in this case, we wouldn't be skipping technical review because it has some technical aspects to it. So it'll probably go through the whole process. So it'll go to, after doing design review, it'll go to technical review, Planning and Zoning Commission, City Council. And then if it's approved at council, it goes back to technical review for any final details for construction permitting.
Thank you, Shannon.
And I would like to just note real quick that what might have been allowed and might be appropriate for, if you could back up, Shannon, in your view, and look across the intersection where you capture the corner of the Aris building and then the two canopies for the noodle shop and Bamba. You know, what's appropriate for those, yeah, is not appropriate for this building. And I would actually say that I'm really not real keen on those either. And when we get to design review, what I'm going to push them to do is that it either needs to be a completely temporary structure or it needs to be part of the building. And this little kind of rinky-dink pretend thing that's not doing either is not doing it very well. So are there any? Oh, Stephen Lee's got his hand up. Go ahead.
I just had one quick perspective from the business point of view. What in concept this would allow for is, during inclement weather, this would allow for outdoor dining that exists during nice weather. So we've got a restaurant that stays busy. We've got cooking staff, chefs, managers, wait staff that stay busy, visitors and residents of Asheville still having a place to enjoy dining. So from a business perspective, I think that's important to realize where they're coming from on this. Thanks.
It is, but they've got existing canopies that are integrated with the building that are, looks like you could modify something like that to get the kind of cover they're looking for without this little tacked on thing. But that's a separate issue that we can discuss. So any other comments regarding this that we need to pass along? Those of us who are on the design review, I've been taking notes. I'm sure Robin, Kimmy, and Stephen have as well, and we will make sure that we address your questions and comments directly to the applicant when we meet with them. Sage, and then Ricardo, and then Sage. Ricardo gets his first comment. Let's go.
Thank you. I just wanted to, back up what everybody's saying. This is it's very disappointing. Andrew's point about this, this would have been great, during the pandemic is spot on. This is exactly what it looks like. It looks like a temporary structure a nicer temporary structure that they're putting out for the pandemic. I saw that all over Annapolis. They were doing that. This building has it really is a nice building. It has this, arboreal theme, going on in the front. And one could see, like sculptural, steel, almost trees out front that can, serve as supports for, tent-like structures or something like that they could, that they could do instead. As far as the ADA, they're not really modifying anything that's already there. The access is still there. They're not. I don't see any issues with that. But to your point, Brian, about if they're going to do this as if it's going to be approved as a temporary structure, I think it should be made clear that a temporary structure means something that's removable and does get removed. So they don't go put it up and then they say, oh yeah, well, it's removable, but then they never do. But yeah, I definitely agree with everything that's being said. It really does look like a very temporary thing on what is otherwise a nice building, and it's a huge waste of an opportunity. That's going to come out. It's coming out. If you look at the side, there's the curb on the bottom of that fence, and that's going to come out basically to the front of that curb, and there's going to be a little sliver. So this really is going to be in your face as you're walking in front of that building. And that's all I have.
Very good. Sage.
I just wanted to share a little thought about, I know this change to design review board reviewing projects and being like the authoritative review body was a bit of a change, but it has led us on this commission to have really more diverse discussions about impacts. So like all the discussions today were great. And I'm thinking about how I know what I'm hearing is concern that we still have some of these hotel or uses getting through before things change. So I will kind of wrap up everything that happened today and send it to council just so they know that this happened. I feel like, without this going to their review, it may not even, or being in the paper, it may not even cross their plate. So I'll do that. And if there's other things that, we notice in these impact discussions that we want me to kind of carry forward to council, let's remember that we have that opportunity, and I'll try and do more of that in general. But great discussions today. I think, as far as this change goes, it was a really good move for this part.
Thank you. Kimmy, and then Andrew, and then we're going to wrap up discussion and move on.
Yeah, I just want to say this gently. So I recognize that ADA requirements and what's lawful is very different than what's useful. And I want to just continue to amplify that when buildings are approved to meet those guidelines and then additions are made and modifications are made that further create indoor spaces where those with physical differences and other types of differences may have a larger challenge of getting out safely if and when there's an emergency. I think how we look at that, again, I've said this before, but I really think post the Rona, there's going to be a lot more people with invisible differences. And I'm not saying that we're a city that's going to be ahead of all that. I can't say that. But I would like to think, with the way that we operate in our town and how inclusive and thoughtful we are, that we would actually be considering those things. And so I recognize again that there are guidelines and stipulations that are ADA, everybody has to follow them as a GC and otherwise, but they are not actually what people need in terms of function. So I do want to highlight, when I look at this building and I look at the proposal and how they're basically creating more inside space outdoors, and there's fewer ways for someone with a physical difference or a different type of difference to see their way out, it actually looks very dangerous to me. But I have a different lens, and I just want to name that. Thank you.
Very good. To point out with that, one of the things Kimmy is pointing out is that as a abled person, I can just walk up the steps and walk down the steps, and it's clear where I'm supposed to go. And if you are not able to do that, it's not as clear to know that that is a gate, and that you're supposed to go over to the side and go out. And so I would actually advise, if this was my client, I would advise them that they have not provided reasonable accommodation and that they were in danger, regardless of whether it meets the letter of the of the ADA. I don't think it meets the intent, the spirit, and I think that's what one of the things Kimmy's pointing out. Andrew, go ahead.
Yeah, just one last thing. I know this has got a lot of steps in review yet to happen after this, and I just want to encourage everybody that is going to be looking at this from the staff side, from the design review side, to man, mind your P's and Q's, because this I've seen this particular applicant drive a truck through loopholes and really undermine what seems to be the intention of policies put in place with their seeming cooperation. And so that goes on at least two corners of the public side of this property, and with the lighting, and having spoken to decision makers that have been involved in this in the past, know that they didn't exactly get what they thought they were getting. And so I'm just gonna cheer everybody who's on the staff side and the design review side on to really use a fine tooth comb on whatever is put forward with this, and expect it to try to be undermined.
It was a good discussion. I think we've given. Okay, go ahead, Stephen Lee.
I'm sorry.
Last one.
I'm just curious. Until the lighting issue gets resolved, can we just table this whole discussion about these enclosed dining spaces? Thanks.
We can't stop them from pursuing other permit applications. We've explored this with other enforcement cases in the past. We can, however, issue enforcement action, and we haven't, only because for a very long time we were holding their CO, thinking that that would be the motivation that they needed to correct it. And when that didn't happen, then this conversation came up, and recognizing that it's a CZ, we were going to kind of identify this enforcement concern. And we just met yesterday to talk about that aspect of this conditional zoning amendment request. So they do intend to address it there. And if that's not supported, then they would have to take some corrective action. So.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I would highly recommend that council not approve this as a CZ unless they have addressed this issue. That's, as Andrew said, if they can't be trusted to follow the rules they've already agreed to follow, why would you allow them to do anything? I don't know that Andrew said that, but I paraphrased it. Yeah. Okay. Right.
Just to prepare you guys, they do have an interesting argument for why the lighting should remain. So
I always have interesting arguments
Yeah.
too, and it never works for me. So there you go. All right. Thank you, everyone. That was a good discussion. Let's move on to development project updates. 123 Haywood Street.
Shannon, well, I'll start. We thought we may have updated renderings to share, and we don't today, but we just wanted to make sure that you all are aware that both of these projects are going to the design review committee next week on Thursday. So we just encourage you, if you have additional comments that you want to, talk with your design review committee reps about, or just to tune into that meeting to see how those projects have
So,
been updated.
when those go out to us, is it possible for the DTC to get those materials so that they can forward any comments to us prior to the meeting?
Yeah, we're expecting revised plans for both those projects sometime today.
Okay.
So when they come in, we can add them to the folder and then
Perfect.
send an email to all of you with the links so you can take a look at that new information.
That way, if anyone who is not a member of the design review has comments, please send those to us. We'll incorporate those as public comments and make sure they get noted during the meeting. Thank you.
And both of these projects were continued from the last DRC meeting. They both had their formal reviews last month, and the DRC was not prepared to approve them, so continued them to this month, to allow for more discussion and further exploration. So hopefully we'll see some important improvements.
Very good. Thank you. Okay, then we will move on to the discussion regarding our annual report. So hopefully everyone has had a chance to look at the annual report. We have I just saw someone's in the document as anonymous unicorn, and now I'm completely distracted. We have a kind of one-page summary or a short summary annual report, and then a longer, thank you, a longer annual report regarding what we've been working on. And I wanted to talk a little bit about what we're sending in, and if you are basically in favor of what is written to date. Regarding our accomplishments, our policy recommendations, potential budget impact and goals, and then we can discuss briefly our upcoming goals. I would like to do that now and take a vote on that in the next 15, 20 minutes. But if it looks like our discussion is not going to allow us to do that, then we will try to schedule another meeting, maybe even as early as next week. I think it has to be in the next couple of weeks. Go ahead, Dana.
By June 30th, we
Okay.
have to.
January 30th.
Or January 30th. Yes,
June 30th, we wouldn't even be worried about it. I'd be procrastinating for months. Yeah. So yeah, we just have to send this to council. So first of all, regarding policy recommendations, we don't have to make.
Would you like for me to bring it up on the screen? Would that be
Yes.
helpful for folks? Okay.
Yes, please. Thank you. Yeah, I'm just assuming everybody's looking at what I'm looking at. Sorry. So this is the draft report that we would send, and then there is a accompanying document which would go into further detail regarding our activities and some of the projects that we've looked at, and just going into a little bit more detail. But this would be the actual document that council would refer to. So we've got our accomplishments regarding some of the policy recommendations. We've provided input on different projects. One of the main, obviously, things that we did last year is regarding the design review composition and the UDO changes regarding that. We did do a fair amount of work. Pedestrian first. Okay, thank you, Ruth. We'll put that in. And then, so that's accomplishments. Reads pretty quickly. Policy recommendations. So one, I need to know if we want to make a focused policy recommendation to council as part of this report. Um, so I'll just stop there, and we can have a discussion on what we want to do for policy recommendations. For me, one of the policy recommendations I would make, and that would go in with both potential budget and upcoming goals, would be that the council fund a consultant to update our design guidelines. Um, and that would be the potential budgetary impact. And our upcoming goal would be to work with the consultant on those design guidelines, on the policies, initiatives, and how all that works together. But I'll open there. Sage was nodding already. Go ahead.
Well, in previous years, so first I agree. In previous years, there was an attempt to partner with the Riverfront Commission as well to suggest that both the riverfront and downtown be updated at the same time and somewhat by the same firm. So I'm not sure if you wanted to. I also am the liaison to that, and well, I'm happy to talk to the chair. But it was a 2 letters and 2 recommendations last time to council that.
I'm happy to do that, and I think that makes sense, especially the way the design review board works. Andrew, and then Kimmy.
Yeah, I was going to suggest design review and also just downtown master plan. We're at 13. We're at the 13-year point, I think, now on our downtown master plan, and it's aged and dated, and its usefulness is decreasing as our built reality far exceeds what that was looking at. So I would love to see a budget allocation for downtown master plan update, along with design review, probably 2 pieces that
work together.
And the other thing is I would love to see budget allocation for programming in downtown. So whether that's what the city is doing from the city staff side, or whether that means they're partnering with another organization. But I would really love to see a budget allocation for dedicated to programming, and that can possibly be part of the shared streets and open streets initiatives, to do things like like a weekly market, or to be able to better leverage the seed of hope, pit of despair, um, or things like that. But I know that we keep on running into this problem where we have all these ideas, and maybe we can get them to happen next budget cycle. Let's make it this budget cycle.
Kimmy, I think you're next.
Yeah, thank you. So my primary recommendation is that whatever we choose to do really provides specificity towards the ARP funds. I think we're in a window where our city has received some ARP funds that could go towards multimodal or some other things that actually can amplify the work being done. I understand, and I would agree with UDO and all of that being done, but I'm not sure that meets really some clear criteria for how those funds need to be used. And so I would really get more strategic and say, let's look at multimodal, let's look at public spaces, and how we can target funding towards those who've been most disenfranchised and impacted by the Rona. I think we're going to see more. I think we're going to get more bang for our buck, so to speak, if we can combine all of those thought processes. Thanks. Brian, you're muted.
Well, it was brilliant. Now I can't remember it. Kimmy, so you're asking that when we identify the budgetary impact of our goal, that we specifically tie update to the downtown master plan, coinciding with probably how this works with the comprehensive plan, update to design guidelines for downtown and riverfront, that we tie that in with all the other work we're doing with multimodal, public spaces, shared streets, as part of the American Rescue Plan funds. Is that
I'm just saying, I'm not saying it has to be all of that because that's intense, but I am saying that to just all of us say what we think and not really put that kind of bow around it. It's arbitrary. I think we need to be really strategic about what it is we're trying to accomplish this year and how the ARP funds will really connect it to the primary goal that the city has in general.
okay?
Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate that. There were hands up and then they went down. I'm sorry. Did I miss somebody? Say, and Megan. Yeah, there you go.
Oh,
Go ahead, Sage.
it's kind of a non sequitur, but also tied to what Kimberly just said. So I wanted to make sure you all knew that the ARPA asks are coming, and we're going to be doing presentations in February 1 and 2. But there is a request for a shuttle between the river and downtown. So if y'all, as a commission, want to take that up, I don't know if there's time between your next meeting. I assume there would be to discuss, and if there's a recommendation or anything. I don't know if y'all knew that was out there.
I think the transportation thing is going to be critical with the ARP funds. And I think as a downtown commission, I know we want to get all these other things done. I just don't think it's wise. I think we need to stay focused like you're suggesting.
Well, there's an existing ask out there, so you all might want to just.
Go ahead, Megan, and then Gio.
So I just wanted to add a layer of support to the programming recommendation as an organization that does a lot of programming within downtown. There are some changes that are most likely coming in 2023 that will impact current programs. And so I think getting ahead of that could be very helpful in making sure that some of these programs and activities are able to continue on. And then I'm also just curious if someone can answer, when is the last time the design guidelines were updated? Does anybody know?
It was basically what, go ahead.
They're just not, they were never completed. So they have a lot of like insert photo here and some missing pieces. But I think it was when this body originated, right? 19, gosh. Wasn't it? It was before.
I think they were updated, and there are gaps in the document we use, but after the downtown master plan. So I thought it was 2010.
Yeah, so the original ones were written in the late 90s, early 2000s, and then Alan and Glines and we were working on that, and like right when the master plan was being written, but before the comprehensive plan, and there are gaps, and this is what we're talking about. That just it's as a designer, both trying to meet that, the recommendations aren't always complete, and then as our poor staff trying to meet with designers, and then as a design review board trying to apply these things, we need better documents and better intent described. Go ahead, Gio.
I just wanted to urge us to continue meeting with the multimodal. I thought that was a really good discussion that we had initially, and as we go into the rest of the year, I think the shared goals that came out of that meeting are important to follow up on. It points us into a new direction in how we develop and manage our public spaces and streets, and I just want to make sure we don't lose that. And I was wondering, just as a follow-up, Brian, is I think we were asked during that meeting to take some sort of formal maybe decision.
We are, and that's actually the next item, the public space management committee reestablishment.
Okay, great.
So yeah, we're and this is Dana and I didn't really know where to put this. We put it after the annual report because it's part of what we're talking about right now, and we wanted to settle on the goals and stuff. But that is part of it. And thank you, Gio. You're
just didn't want to drop this.
Absolutely right. That's absolutely right. Andrew, go ahead.
Yeah, I really appreciated working with multimodal. So I would suggest that a meeting, a full meeting between our bodies happen annually. And then I think that the public space management is going to be a useful organ for having members from both committees work together. So I think that's what we're going to talk about next. So, but I think that that is going to be the main way that we're functioning together is around public space management. I think the Venn diagram makes most sense right there for us. But an annual meeting of the like we did in December of everyone together, I think, is a great idea. The one thing I'd like to tack on to my suggestion about programming um, is that I'd like to see it focused on. I mean, we have a lot of like downtown festivals and things like Chow Chow and such, and they tend to get they tend to be the biggest players in downtown that all sort of create a festival, and that's great. Sort of one of the I think the goals of I think our programming budget here should be to try to create opportunities for people who aren't currently in downtown to come to downtown, whether that's like in this cases like a farmer's market or an art market or things like that. So to create sort of entrepreneurial opportunities, not just to like create a festival that benefits the people who have sort of the money to program their own activities. So that's kind of where I'd like to see if we're going to spend public funds on it. Let's try to do some things that aren't happening, benefit some people who aren't being benefited, and I think that'll have. So I think that's will have really equitable outcomes if we want it to, have the potential for that, and uh, yeah. So that's I would like to kind of focus that programming a little more than just say, hey, throw some money at it.
Very good. Kimmy, go ahead.
Yeah, Andrew, I appreciate what you said. I think it just, again, comes back to why I'm going to harp on multimodal public transportation and like public space as being like super critical in that component, whether it's festivals or bringing people downtown. I think that local focus, who's been highly impacted, making sure that we're tying it into ARPA funds just for this year. I think we have to be micro hyper focused so that we can get the highest outcomes. And to me, that's part of the way we're going to do it. I'm going to be really frank. As much as I want the downtown master plan updated and the UDO updated as well, I'm just not sure that that's the highest and best use of this year. I know you all are probably disagreeing with me, but from an impact perspective, I think with those funds attached, more people, especially on a local level, can be impacted at a greater advantage.
Go ahead, Sage.
Well, and just frankly, I mean, like every other industry, staffing may be a real issue here. I mean, I heard the recommendation was to hire a consulting firm, but even that, consultants are overworked. I mean, there just may not be capacity as a separate issue.
Andrew.
Yeah, Kimmy, I hear you about not wanting to spread too far afield, but we're with all these large valuations of tax money of hotels, we know that downtown is more than paying for itself. And I hear what you're saying, Kimmy, but I think we can do all this and more if we want to. But that's if we want to make sure that downtown is investing in itself. And historically, we've let downtown sort of subsidize the rest of town as far as like the tax values and things like that. And we've done minimal investment, usually just around major infrastructure projects like Haywood Street, where that was an opportunity really from MSD. It really wasn't a city driven, it was the city sort of followed on that. And I love how Haywood Street worked out. But I would love to see the city lead on this. And we know that downtown is more than paying for itself. And so I think we can do all this stuff and have money left over. Oops.
And Andrew, I think Haywood Street was the one thing that downtown got out of the bonds, if I recall. Isn't that right? Yeah. And that was the last big investment. It's a good point. I was saying to the Asheville Downtown Association, the other board I sit on, that, what happens in downtown, who are the leaders? It's this body, it's Asheville Downtown Association. This is, if you wanted to spur some more investment and activity, it would be coming from y'all. Let's see.
Well, let me ask a question. We've got roughly 10 minutes left before I start pushing you folks over time. Are we going to reach a reasonable resolution of something that we can vote to approve to send to them regarding policy recommendations, or do we need to table this discussion and have a 30 or 40-minute meeting? We'll send out a poll and try to get some times over the next week and a half where we can reconvene and hash this out. What do you folks think? Kimmy, go ahead.
I'd like to get it done if we can.
Me too.
If
Thank
it's
you.
possible.
Okay, Dana.
I was going to suggest, but yeah, we can do it now here. I think there's some good themes, and we can, I pulled the language, I pasted in what we had recommended last year, one of the pieces, and I feel like we can work in some of the other recommendations probably into that statement. And then, so I do want us to think about what is being recommended to City Council, and then also what the commission wants to work on in the year ahead as kind of two separate, and they can be related. But I think the public space management work, and once we get through this, we'll talk about the reboot of that committee. I think there's really good opportunities there to work on a lot of the things that you guys have brought up. So there could be, yeah, related recommendations to council, but that group could help inform, what the city's approach to shared streets in the year ahead, and improvements to how public spaces are managed so that they can be more accessible. I think there's a lot of good stuff that we can get into, and the way that group will be set up is to include involvement from a multimodal as well. So I think that I'm feeling and hearing that theme as kind of something the Downtown Commission is really interested in digging into and working on in the year ahead. So so I think that's great. I think that seems like a good theme. But then, yeah, just revisiting the council recommendations, and maybe we can get this language where it needs to be.
Well, I think the language for the design guidelines, it says fund downtown master plan updates specifically regarding public space management, involve the downtown commission outreach and oversight, and then talks about the design guidelines for downtown and the riverfront. That was good language. Let's go. I think that actually, and then leaving we want to focus on. I don't know if these are two different things right now. They are ARPA, multimodal public spaces, and programming for shared streets in 68 Haywood. I think those are three policy recommendations. We probably need to flesh out the language on what we mean by programming and what we mean by focusing the ARPA. Asking council to look at what they're doing for multimodal public spaces with ARPA. But I'm fine. I would vote for that right now, and then move forward from those policy recommendations into our goals. Anyone have any objections so far to kind of the direction we're going, other than Kimmy's continued admonition to focus? I hear you. Yes, ma'am. Dana, go ahead.
I appreciate how you framed maybe council prioritizing public aspects of public space and multimodal improvements in the ARPA fund allocation. I just do want to note that the city has,
already done.
Is in the application process already. So
it's already done, right?
Right. As far as I know, there won't be new opportunities to apply for new projects, but staff has submitted proposals, specifically one to transition the temporary outdoor expansion program into long-term programs. And so that one's definitely related. And, a public restroom is being proposed in downtown. So there are some things that I think relate to public space, but just want to make sure folks are aware that there will, as far as I know, there won't be new opportunities to propose projects.
Yeah, thanks, Dana. And that's kind of what I'm hinting at is like, let's stay with what's working and let's see it through.
Andrew, go ahead.
Yeah, I feel comfortable with this. I guess I just would ask our council liaison, like, is when it comes to budget time and you got to go to bat for these needs, what do you need from us as far as making an effective ask? Because if we don't need to spend more time on this, then I'll make a motion right now. But if Sage thinks that we need to punch this up a little bit, then I'll take that advice.
I think things to consider are, there are a lot of boards and commissions with their asks. So being concise, clear, focused, I think is always good. Being explicit in the ask. I mean, I think this is fine. I think they expect another request for updated guidelines because it comes um, but speaking to this and knowing that the ARPA asks are out there, I think is important. hmm I'm watching you type. Yep. No, I mean, I think, Andrew, to your question, I think this will suffice. I do. And I think that if there are 10 asks or, it just gets more complicated. And no one board is going to get all the things. It's just a lot of boards and a lot of asks. But aligning it with the ARPA ask sounds wise. Partnering with the Riverfront Commission on that ask again sounds like it would be helpful. They do intend to ask.
And I think as far as upcoming goals, I think a lot of it depends on how that budget allocation goes. I mean, if we get everything we ask for, we've got a lot of work to do as a downtown
Sure.
commission. And if we don't, then we'll have to fill our plate then. So it's kind of hard to tell what our upcoming goals are going to be before we know what resources what we're gonna be tasked with.
It's almost like the annual report and upcoming years should be more in line with the calendar of council instead of the actual annual calendar,
I'd
This
agree.
wouldn't be a bad idea.
I
I will
sorry, I
say
should have raised
some,
my hand. Go ahead.
some of the other, so I also serve on some of the housing boards, and there are, some have gone to the extent of saying we recognize there's understaffing and we recommend more staff. So,
Yeah,
if you're
the Public Art and Cultural Commission has said that for years, and now we've finally got some help over there, so that's exciting.
mhm.
Go ahead, Kimmy.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I spoke out of turn. So the other thing I just want to amplify, because when we don't have continuing goals from the prior year, I think that's stochastic in some ways. And diversity, equity, inclusion, and those priorities, I think somehow need to be overlaid in here, whether that's focusing specifically on what Commissioner Fletcher mentioned about the equitable entrepreneurial opportunities, or somewhere. I think we do need to really amplify that. Otherwise, again, it's just noise. Like there's got to be some flow and also some specificity. Thanks.
The last paragraph in the policy recommendations, that last sentence in the downtown master plan update says design guidelines should be written to include socially, economically disadvantaged community members so our land use design rules and processes match our goals and challenges. We can punch that up a little bit. I think that's going in that direction.
Yeah, I think in each of them though is what I'm being clear about, is
Oh, my fault.
because the updates is like more heady and it doesn't actually provide the DEI on the ground and day-to-day policy today. So somehow this futuristic diversity, equity, inclusion, and what we can do now about it, I think will continue to flesh out those primary goals of council in general and get us to the table, easier, and keep us at the table. Thanks.
Thank you. Sage, go ahead.
Just real quick to say that all of the ARPA applicants will be able to do a 2-minute presentation. The dates are February 1st and 2nd from 11 to 1 and 10 to 12. So, and it will be live streamed, so you can watch that if you want to. You can participate then and then make your recommendation after that to council, knowing which projects are out there.
And so right now, with the three policy recommendations that are up there, the potential budget impacts would be really leveraging ARPA funds is not really either a staffing or a budgetary thing. We're just saying how we focus current staff and current time on, and our time as well, on what's already in the pipeline. The two items that would have budget impacts would be the master plan design guideline updates and the programming aspect, correct? Okay. And we don't know what that budget impact is. I think it's, I don't know what is it considered major? I don't know.
Well, no, it's not considered major, but we do know we had some estimates in previous years. So for the guideline updates, we had some money estimated. Programming, maybe Megan could get in touch with me around some suggestions just from her experience of programming downtown.
Okay.
I will say too, as far as programming goes, we've heard it referred to like when trying to better understand and respond to some of the changes in downtown through the pandemic, whether it be you know, more folks that are houseless in areas or trouble with parks and cleanliness and stuff. One of the things, you know, there's always measures you can do to come on the backside of that and respond to it, but there's other things like programming that help launch kind of things to be more attended to and more engaged and more active that lend to cleanliness and different types of experiences downtown. So programming is more of a planning aspect as opposed to what we've been doing, which is responding to issues. So I love that it would be suggested.
It is 11 o'clock. I think, folks, we can probably wrap all this up in another 15 minutes. Is everyone okay staying with us for about 15 more minutes? Good. So good. So far, so good. Okay. Thank you so much. I appreciate your patience. All right. Well, we have then we kind of have a document here that I think somewhat reflects this discussion as best I can tell so far. And so we have council recommendations, policy recommendations, potential budgetary impact, and upcoming goals listed. We can work on that a little bit, but if this, I think we need to work on the language a little bit. Dana and I can work on that, make sure everybody sees it before we send it out. But does this capture a consensus view so far of what we've discussed that we would be willing to vote on and approve? So far, so good. Is someone willing to make a motion to that effect besides me?
I will make a motion to, whomever. I'll follow up. I'll do the second. How about that?
I move to adopt the Downtown Commission annual report as presented.
I second that.
That's great. Thank you. So I've got to call on you, even though you made the motion. Andrew?
Aye.
Brian, sorry, did you want to take
sorry.
public comment?
Oh, for this? Yeah, sure. Do we have
I'm just not sure. You don't, but I just didn't know for items for which you're taking a vote. I mean, I guess normally we take public comment, but
we do. Thank you.
We don't always do that, but I mean, I think it's never a bad idea. It just hasn't been advertised that way. We can do that in future agendas.
Yeah. So do we have anybody in the queue?
I will check.
We don't. I've checked.
Okay. All right. Thank you. But I appreciate you noting it. Thank you very much. So Andrew was an aye. Kimmy, are you still there?
Aye.
Thank you. Stephen Lee?
Aye.
I am an aye. Robin?
Aye.
Megan?
Aye.
Gio?
Aye.
Ricardo?
Aye.
Miss Ruth?
Aye.
And Sage?
Aye.
Very good. The ayes have it. That passes. Thank you so much. And now we'll talk about the Public Space Management Committee reestablishment. Dana, is that you? Perfect.
Yes, thank you. And I'll ask Andrew to chime in where he'd like to as well. But as I hope and think you all are aware, we are looking at restarting this public space management, downtown public space management committee that had previously been formed. A lot of work was done in 2018 and 2019, and we have some resulting, we have a resulting downtown public space management framework and some recommendations that have come out of the work of that group. We shared a draft of that document with the Downtown Commission and Multimodal Commission at the work session, but we would like to, and you know, COVID, I think, just slowed that work down a little bit and prevented the group from continuing to meet regularly. But we'd like, obviously, there's a lot of interest in these issues, so it's a perfect time to get the group back together and see if the framework and recommendations still are aligned with the things that we see that need improvements in downtown, and work together to advance various policies or programs that deal with downtown public space. So what we've done is revisited the representatives that were previously on the committee. We had the Downtown Commission at the time when this was formed was really intentional about making sure there was good representation of different folks that are involved in different ways with public space. And so we have, and we also in the past, not to say this group is going to be 20, 25 people, there are people that can cover multiple roles. They might wear multiple hats on some of this. We are in the process of reaching out to folks that had previously participated to see if they're interested in continuing to participate. But we definitely have some gaps. And we also discussed at that joint multimodal transportation commission meeting and came up here today, having multimodal transportation commission representatives. We didn't explicitly have that in the past. Also thinking it could be a good idea to have an accessibility advocate or expert added to the group as as one of the representatives. So wanted to see, and do you want me, I know you have these in front of you, I can talk through each if that's helpful. We have someone with busking experience, a design professional or a design organization, a restaurant owner with outdoor dining that had a temporary parklet, media outlet. The reason we previously had that is newspaper boxes. There is an issue that comes up from time to time, and they are unique users of public space. A tourism lodging representative, a downtown resident, planning and zoning commission liaison, urban forestry commission liaison, public art and cultural commission liaison, downtown business representative, organizer of outdoor special events, community representative involved with programming on the block, or in Triangle Park, which is a little bit more explicit than what we had previously. Homeless advocate, community member involved with maintaining park spaces, restaurant owner with traditional outdoor dining. We've had representatives on Pack Square in the past, just because that's a unique, heavily utilized public space. And then again, multimodal and accessibility perspective. So there's that, and I'm hoping the commission, if anyone has feedback, additions, changes, let's talk about that, and hoping that we could move forward. But I'll just real quickly also, for more context, discuss what we see this committee, or really, I think it kind of makes sense to refer to it as a task force. It's pretty task specific at this point. It doesn't necessarily need to be a standing committee, although it could be, if that makes sense. But we're looking to this committee to help review the public space management framework and ultimately work with us to finalize that. As part of that framework, there's like 15 different uses of public space and different recommendations for policy and programmatic improvements. We're going to look to this committee to help prioritize some of those areas for improvements. So really to help staff understand, what needs to be worked on first. And then we are excited to be able to work with this group on various projects and initiatives that the city's working on that relate to public space, and have this group meet on an ad hoc basis to review those things and to provide feedback on those things. Also thinking that it would be great to check in on those on the public space management framework and recommendations, probably at least annually. So pulling the group together to be able to keep an eye on that. So I think that pretty much covers things. And Andrew, if you have anything to add, or of course, happy to answer any questions or have any discussion that you guys would like.
Yeah, I'd just like to thanks, Dana, for the work you've put in on this. And where we left off before the pandemic was sort of this logical stopping point in a way. We got a bunch of survey results in, and then our work was interrupted, and we learned a tremendous amount about public space management, I think, during the pandemic, and saw some ideas and saw some things tried that um, that I was really excited to see the appetite for. And so a lot of views change on how to use public space, and I think that we're in a really interesting place now to move forward. And I sense a good amount of energy from the folks from multimodal that want to be a part of this. And as far as my fellow commissioners on downtown, if you look at this list and you know that you wear a bunch of these hats, please volunteer. You know, I, I would love to see. Obviously, we have to have less than 6 from downtown commission because of quorum rules. Um, but if you know that you wear a lot of hats, please volunteer. I will ask you that. I wear a few of these hats: busking experience, public art, and cultural commission. Is kind of the 2 that I bring. So if you know you're bringing 2, I would love to see your hand up as far as joining our work.
And we want to take a vote on this today, correct, Dana? That we're reestablishing this, but we don't necessarily have to have everybody volunteering. Even though I agree with Andrew, please volunteer, and now is fine.
Yeah, I think it'd be helpful to know, and several of you had participated previously. It'd be helpful to know now who is interested, and then also just to see if there's buy-in on these on like the representation itself, and then we can move forward to fill those seats.
Stephen Lee.
I'd be interested.
Perfect. So we've got Andrew, Stephen Lee, Megan, your hand's up.
Yeah, I am also interested in continuing. I'm happy to wear a couple of hats too. So if you want to bring in other folks, that's great, but I can fill a couple of those roles as well. And I participated previously.
Perfect. Thank you. Gia.
I would love to continue.
Perfect. Okay. 2 more.
Kimmy?
That's funny. I have to say that I am tapped out in my timelines right now, but I know you guys will represent well.
Thank you, and you know, and Kimmy, feel free if feel free to jump in as an observer and check our work as you get the time, if you can't officially commit. But if you find an opening, please, you're welcome. Your input is welcome.
I appreciate that. Thank you so much.
All right, we've got 4. The rest of you, I don't see anybody jumping in, but if you think about it a little bit and would like to participate, please do. I am I'm a little tapped out. I don't know that I can do that unless Vidia gives me a break on some of these other things. Okay. Well, Andrew, can you make the motion since you're chairing this, or do we need to make a motion that I would like for someone to make a motion that we reestablish the Public Space Management Committee with Andrew and Stephen Lee and Megan and Gio serving, with the other members to be added at a later date. And I'm fine with calling it a working group, whatever you want to do. Go from there.
That sounded suspiciously like a motion.
I move that we establish the Public Space Management Committee.
As stated. Very good. Is there a second?
Second.
Very good. Okay. So Andrew, are you an aye?
Aye.
Kimmy?
Aye.
Stephen Lee?
Aye.
I'm an aye. Robin?
Aye.
Megan?
Aye.
Gio?
Aye.
Ricardo?
Aye.
Ruth?
Aye.
And Sage?
Aye.
Very good. Thank you very much. That is reestablished, and we will go from there. Dana?
Thank you. Before we move on, I wanted to revisit what Ruth brought up, which I think is referring to the joint work session with multimodal and how there was a proposal to pass a motion or a resolution that pedestrians are prioritized over vehicles. And I don't know if that was the full language. And a vote was not taken at the joint session, but we talked about the respective commissions being able to pass some sort of statement at their respective meetings. And so I just want to bring that back to the table as an opportunity.
Thank you. Andrew, go ahead.
Yeah, and Ruth and Dana, I'm happy to pick up that ball and run with it. As some of you know, I think I've got a long reputation of working on exactly such a thing, whether it comes as a busker or other type of advocate. So I feel well equipped to take that ball and run with it, even with the lack of a motion from that meeting.
So who raised their hand? Gil, go ahead.
I just wanted to reiterate, when we did, at the conclusion of that joint meeting, we were asked to go back, and I would like to be able to come out, at least as this body, vote in either support or so forth. But I think we really do. The expectation was that we would go back to each of our commissions, discuss it, and bring forth a recommendation.
Dana.
And I would like to do that now so that we don't drop the ball on this.
Okay. Dana, do we have the language?
So I can try to get that real quick, but I will say, and maybe, you know, it obviously relates to the work the Public Space Management Committee is doing, and there's different programs and initiatives that group will be looking at that you can prioritize pedestrians over vehicles. And the work of that group, obviously recommendations can be made from that group. So I just want to also offer that as an option of where that lives. But I will, in 1 minute, I will see if I can go find that language that had previously been.
That was actually where I was going to go. Gio, I apologize if I'm misunderstanding. And if you have language, that's fine. I'm happy to entertain that. But I feel very comfortable with the four of you, with the group that we just authorized to implement a pedestrian first policy. I think that's what Andrew was saying. I'm not positive. I mean, we can even maybe adopt a resolution that as the Public Space Management Committee works on begins their work, that they adopt a pedestrian first oriented policy as one of their guiding directives. Andrew, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, that's fine. I feel comfortable, Brian, with what you just said. I feel like if we get a motion here and it doesn't quite match the motion that comes from multimodal, that's going to be a little tricky for the task force to deal with. So Gio, I hear what you're saying, and I don't want to delay. I think the energy and the intention is all there. But I kind of believe that it should come from our task force, get bounced up to our respective commissions, and then we're going to have unanimity probably and a single voice. And I'm not sure that we're going to be able to get that out of this meeting right here.
That's fine.
AKA effectiveness. Thank you.
I'm 100% on board with that, and I trust you guys. So there. Everybody okay with that? Okay, perfect. If you can, I'm going to extend our time just a little bit longer. I think we're almost there. We'll do our updates and reports, and then we'll have some informal discussion and move from there. Okay. Stephen Lee, Design Review Committee.
All right, I'll make it really quick. We reviewed 3 projects on December 16th. The first was the 123 Haywood Street project, which is between the Basilica and Hotel Indigo. A lot of discussion. We're going to hear them again, I think, very soon at our next meeting. And it seems like the developer and architects are really trying to meet some of the requests. The second project was 363 Hilliard, which was the Avery Apartments. Again, we saw a lot of movement in positive directions, and some of our comments are being directly addressed. And the project we talked about today, the Star Building on Hilliard Lexington and Broadway, we heard that. Thanks.
Very good. Thank you. Asheville Downtown Association, Megan.
Yeah, so I mentioned this last month, but it tacks on nicely to the conversation before about the value of downtown and the need to remind or raise awareness about investing in downtown. We're working on what will be a two-part project. The first part and the most relevant to this conversation is a data-driven piece. That will so showing the value of downtown, looking at public investment in downtown from the city and the county, private investment, and some other key data points. It's our goal to have sort of a launch of this at our State of Downtown Luncheon, which is now scheduled for Tuesday, March 8th. Format to be decided. We'll figure that out in February. And then there's also a sort of an emotional piece to that too, just reconnecting our citizens with downtown and the importance of downtown to the region. And then so we do surveys twice a year, once at the top of the year, once in the middle of the year. We will launch our downtown business focus survey. That will come out the week of January 31st. So sometime right around February 1st, we'll get that out. And those results will also be presented at the State of Downtown Luncheon. And that's it for now.
Great. Thank you. Downtown Commission, the downtown updates. I think that's Dana.
I will share my screen. Okay. Want to make everyone aware, this group, but the wider community as well, that applications are still being accepted for the Community Reparations Commission. And there was an update provided to council just earlier this week on that process. I provided a link to those slides, and applications are open through January 15th. Oh, that's tomorrow. This is the last day. Okay. So please help get the word out if you know anyone that might be interested. Wanted to flag, there was a really thorough update provided to City Council on Tuesday on homeless initiatives and homeless response, both from community development staff as well as from the police department. So a lot of really good information shared and some good discussion from City Council. And I just would really encourage you all to take a look back at that recording, and I've provided the link here. Also just flagging some resources that we have available on the city's website related to homelessness, city's response, and resources available, including a guide for businesses. Pack Square improvements. We will be releasing an RFP on Tuesday to hire a project manager who will work closely with the community to help reimagine our Pack Square area and the former Vance Monument site, and help work on a future vision and plan for that space. So I'm happy to share that out with you all when that RFP is released. And in the meantime, we know that there is interest in displaying temporary public artwork in that space. And currently we're routing folks through a program we have called Place Partners, but we're also working towards facilitating some type of rotating public art in that area as we move forward with our visioning process. Harpa funding. So Sage mentioned this. Those who have proposed or submitted applications will be providing 2-minute presentations February 1st and 2nd at council work sessions. We talked about development project updates. In addition to the 2 projects we mentioned going to DRC next week, 48 South Market Street is also going to DRC for final review. And the next council meeting is January 25th. Highlighted just a few things upcoming on that agenda. Making some changes to design review committee appointments that we've discussed. Also, while not in the central business district, conditional zoning for West Haywood Street in the Weekend neighborhood thought could be a project of interest to flag. And the city has hired a new assistant city manager. Her name is Rachel Wood, and I've provided a link to more information here. Indoor face covering requirements, that was extended by the county just a couple weeks ago, and so that's in place through February 16th. And as everyone probably knows, we are expecting some winter weather. The city's prepared to clear streets, and they should be out today putting salt down. And just want to remind businesses and property owners as well that folks are responsible for clearing public sidewalks in front of their businesses and properties, and the city will be doing that for city properties. And that's what I've got. Happy to answer any questions.
We can address any issues and move right into informal discussion if you'd like. So as Dana pointed out, the presentation to City Council has some updates for our response to homeless encampments and shelters and items like that. If you haven't already watched that or reviewed that information, I encourage you to do so. We also are the new department director for parks coming in end of February, 1st of March. Is that right? Is that when he comes in?
He starts end of January.
End of January, okay. We also have officer elections coming up. So if you know, if you've got nominations to make, we need to start working on that, I guess. And we will be looking at the vision plan for South Slope in our February, March. So any comments or questions or things we need to talk about on upcoming items? Go ahead, Andrew.
I just want to go back to public space management
Yeah.
for a second. I realized that we didn't kind of tell the commission like when we're going to be coming back and like what exactly the next step is. So are we, so I guess the question I have is, are we going to intend to get a meeting of the task force together before the next downtown commission meeting and then expect to have an agenda item from that there, or what? So the next downtown commission meeting is on my birthday, February 11th.
Happy birthday.
Thank you.
I in the next steps I shared, we didn't go over it, but I think a good goal is to convene that group in February. And I guess depending on how quickly we find folks to fill seats, that could be before or after the downtown commission next meets. But I would say definitely meeting in February is something that we're working towards.
Great. Well, I'm going to encourage us to aim for before the February meeting so that we can take any action needed as a commission at that meeting if we can. So
thank you, Andrew. Kimmy, you had a comment.
Yeah, thanks. I just wanted to ask, and the group, if we would consider when we talk about South Slope that we would give the historic provenance to it of South Side. I just think when development moves forward, but it costs a community its provenance and its neighborhood, that actually referencing it as the South Side, now known as the South Slope, just gives the respect. So I'm going to request that even for all historically known neighborhoods, and this specifically was African American, just as a way for acknowledging how things are moving forward without glossing over them. Much appreciation.
Thank you. And I'll take the blame for that in the agenda. We do acknowledge, we recognize Southside very much in the plan. So when we look at the plan, please give us feedback, but my fault on the agenda. Thanks.
Mine too. I know better, Kimmy. Thank you. Okay. Okay, it's 11:28. I think we're done. Is everybody good? For the most part? All right. Is there a motion to adjourn? I make a motion we adjourn. How's that? Is there a second?
Goodbye.
Goodbye. All right. Thank you so much, everybody. We'll see you soon.
Cheers.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.